Hi. Oh, hi. Where are you joining from? Hi, I can see someone just joining the session. Can you tell me where you're joining from, please? Can you leave a chat in the comment section? Today we will be talking about the needs of a man, or a man's greatest need. And it's a very big misconception that we usually carry, especially we women. We tend to think that the needs of a man are similar to those of a woman, but that's not always the case. A man's needs are very different from a woman's need, which is exactly what we'll be talking about today. Sorry guys.
Myykaapissa lojuvat vaatteet ja hankin lisätienestiä Vinteristä. Nappaa kuvia, lisää tuote ja myy ilman kuluja.
Hi everybody. If you're just joining in, my name is Alison and I'm connected from Finland. It's exactly 7 p.m. Should I say evening? Anyways, I'm still receiving the last sunlight of the day because, well, the sun is actually setting, but as you can see, the brightness from my camera is actually from the sunlight. So in today's session, we will be talking about the man's greatest need. And I would really like some men to join today's session because I would like to see how much the men will agree with what I'm going to say today, how much it will resonate, so that we can equally think of how accurate these things are and how we can get ourselves, especially as women, to be in that place or in that position where we really understand the needs of our men, or the needs of our man, in order to serve him better. If you're just joining the live session, please kindly hit the like button, tap on the screen. Hi, you Nadesh. Like the session, please like the session so it can let TikTok know that it's a relevant topic we are talking about today, which I believe is very relevant. So fast forward, last week we started talking about a few points. I'll just give a recap of what we talked about last week so that those who are just joining in will know exactly what we're talking about. So throughout last week's session, we talked about how as women we can realize how much we hurt our partners and stuff like that, and why some men turn to change later on in a relationship or later on in the marriage. We said that there are always signs to look for when it comes to failure in a marriage or failure in a relationship, and that's as two consenting partners in a relationship, we should always get to understand that in as much as we may always see the fault in our partners, in as much as we may always see something to blame in our partners, we all have our own faults. We all have our own role to play when it comes to the failure to failure in a relationship. But in most cases, we would realize our partner's failures and will not realize our own failure. We will turn to blame our partners or the third party or the opposite party of being the main cause of the separation, of being the main cause of the issues, no problem. But if we really take a look at it, we'll get to realize that we equally had our role to play. We had our own responsibility when it comes to separation, when it comes to issues, especially we as women, because one of the greatest enemy of a woman is the tongue. Especially for us women who do not have that self-control and ability to control our tongue and our mouth, especially when we are addressing or talking to our partners. And we said that some of the things that you can look out for when it comes to a failure in a relationship is, or some of the reasons why our partners may begin to lose feelings for us in a relationship, is when we reduce our partners. When we reduce our partners, especially the men, or when we tend to challenge our partner's authority and things like that. And equally, our way of addressing our partners and the temper in which we handle discussions can be a very major source of um conflicts or escalation of issues in our relationships. And then we talked about a very important point last week, which is um the thought that, or the idea that women are always trying to change men in relationship. We established the fact that as human beings we can't change anyone. We don't have the ability to change someone, but rather when we mount pressure on people or on our partners to change, the end result will always be resentment in most cases. you know and we establish the fact that women hold the keys to happiness in marriage. We as women, we may be the key to the breakup, or we may be the key to the restoration of the relationship, which turns to establish how much influence a woman can have in a relationship. We said a man stops being attracted to his woman when she stops doing the things that she used to do while they were still dating, or while they were still in the early stage of the relationship. But as time went on, they've been together, or you've been together with your partner, then you stop doing the things you used to do. You stop looking pretty. You stop all the things that you used to do in the beginning of the relationship that attracted your partner towards you. You stop doing it. As a result, men equally will tend to fall out of love or stop being attracted. And we said that as women, we should stop trying to change the men, but rather we should the first thing is to try to realize our own mistakes. When you realize your own mistakes, it gives you the opportunity to make amends. It gives you the opportunity to adjust on yourself. And when you're able to adjust on yourself as a human being, when you're able to work on yourself, your personal weaknesses, your personal flaws, it gives your partner the opportunity to flourish as well. But when you keep bashing and putting pressure on your partner all the time to change, it will only lead to resentment in most cases. And we said that as women, we equally need to awaken the natural feminine instinct within us. And if you take note, this natural feminine instinct has been in a woman from the time she was a little girl. When you look at the way a little girl would address their daddy, or address their, especially their daddies, when they want something or they are trying to get a favor from their daddy, they are very innocent. But as we grow up, we tend to lose that femininity, we tend to lose that energy. But this is a point where we are supposed to realize that feminine energy is a vital part of us, and as women we shouldn't lose that energy. For example, when you as a woman, you begin to shout all the time, you begin to nag all the time, you begin to back all the time, it's a degradation of your feminine energy. You're supposed to stay on your lane. You're supposed to remain as feminine as much as possible, especially when you're in a relationship with a man. Because when you put yourself in a position where you begin to challenge the man's authority, when you begin to, like, just sometimes we women, sometimes we do things out of emotions, not even out of reasoning. Sometimes it's mostly out of emotions, and because you had a misunderstanding with your partner, you now begin to challenge his authority. You now begin to, say hurtful words and hurtful things, that really makes you put your partner in a difficult position. It makes you actually lose your value. It makes you actually lose your sense of femininity. And we said that for you to identify if a man really loves you, you must ask yourself this question: does he love you with all your heart? If you're able to determine if a man loves you with all your heart, if he has or feel a tender desire to protect you and shelter you from all harm, worries and difficulties, if the answer to these questions are yes, then indeed that means the man loves you. Because a man who really loves you, would always have that tender desire to protect you, to shield you from every worries, from every stress, from every pressure of life, you know. And most of these things are very visible during courtship. During the early stage of your relationship, you would always see this happening. But if now in the long run of your relationship, you start realizing that this kind of affection that your partner used to give you reduces or depreciates, you just need to know that there is something that you're doing wrong, or there is something that you're not doing right. And we said that there is a price to pay. I am 24, but I think I'm still too young to love. See wise. Well, I would say generally men actually get to a stage of realization at a very how would I say, a little bit slower. We women, we get that sense of responsibility very, 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 very early. That sense of responsibility comes to women very early. But for most men, it is when they are 25, 26, 27. Some men even at 30. It's at 30 that they begin to have that sense of realization that, okay, now it's time for me to settle down and have a family. So I really do understand. I understand your point of view. So I was saying that for you as a woman to provoke that ultimate love in your partner, that tender desire to protect you and shield you from every worry and trouble, you must have to pay a price. And that price to be paid is humility. When the Bible tells us, women, submit to your husband, it's really a big deal. It's really a big deal. And as women, we may want to try to challenge this as much as we can, but it will never cease to be a fact. It will never cease to be a fact. That's how God designed a home to be like. The wife is supposed to submit to the husband, and when you have that humility of heart, you would easily be able to bring out that love and compassion and care and tenderness out of your man or out of your husband. So as women, we need to lay aside our self-righteousness and feminine pride. The modern ideas of marriage, the modern ideas of relationship, those things don't work. Actually, when you come to think about it, you would realize that the new and modern ideas and ideologies of feminism and marriage and all these things, in most cases, it leads to divorce. The ancient ways, or what we refer to as the old ways, they would always work. In fact, I would say time has been the test of it all. You realize that the way our mothers back then used to be meek, the way our mothers back then used to be humbled, but you see this generation of alpha males and alpha females. We are getting it all wrong. We are getting it all wrong. That's why the rate of divorce keeps increasing, because everybody is trying to prove a point in marriage. But marriage was not actually meant to be a front where people get into to prove a point. Marriage is supposed to be a union or a covenant where two people come together in agreement, not against each other, but in agreement. You get it? There must be an agreement within it that we are coming together because we want to build something. We are coming together to answer to a superior call, and that superior call is a call from God. Because he was the one who initiated the idea of marriage, that the man shall leave his father and his mother, and they shall cleave to their wife, and they shall become one. That oneness is a symbol of agreement. But if you turn your home or your marriage into a battlefield, what happens? You shouldn't feel high CYs. You shouldn't feel ashamed of you. Actually, you should be proud of yourself that you are 24 and you're still a virgin. It's a very good thing. I would say it's not about women, it's about the world we are in. We are in a world, or we are in a society where morality has been so played down, by the society. We don't even understand what morality is anymore. So you shouldn't feel bad about it. Instead, you should give a brace. In fact, let us give a big hand, a big hand and a big hug to CYs. Okay? So you must be willing to change. You must be willing to change all old wrong ways of thinking and doing things. Hi, Philippines. Welcome, welcome. I was just giving a recap of last week's session. Which means sometimes as a woman, you would have to bite your tongue. When you always feel that urge to reply back to your man, when you always feel that urge to talk back to your partner as a woman, those are the crucial moments where you need to bite your tongue. Because especially in situations where you're having heated conversations and stuff like that, if you always have that urge to reply and you actually reply back, most of your issues in your relationship will always escalate. And we said in last week's session that one of the ultimate way of restoring a man's heart towards you is accepting him for who he is, his flaws and his strengths. And in the process of accepting him in his strengths and his weakness, it equally means that, or for you to be able to accept a man with his strengths and his weaknesses, you must be able to, stop looking at his wrongs, and focus on his strengths. Focus more on his strengths than you focus on his weaknesses. Because why? We all are work in progresses and we all have our weaknesses. Imagine if in a relationship you both, or you all are focusing on your weaknesses. At the end of the day, it's going to be a forefront. But that's not what it was supposed to be in the beginning. There is a reason why God created you the way you are and your spouse the way they are. Because you're supposed to complete each other. The Bible says that when God had created the man and placed him in the garden, he said there was not found a helpmate comparable. Or, what does that mean? It means that the helpmate was coming in to complement, which means you're supposed to complement each other. Which means that in areas where you would be lacking as a man, your wife may have it all there. And in areas where you may be lacking as a woman, your spouse may be complete in those areas. So now when you come into that relationship, what happens is you have to complement each other. Use your own weaknesses to the advantage of your marriage. Use your own weaknesses. Use your own strengths to the advantage of your relationship. If you're, for example, in a relationship where the man is the one who is more financially sound, and the woman is a spendy type, instead of bashing your partner all the time because of their weaknesses, instead you're supposed to use your strength as the man to cover the home in such a way that people from outside will not see your weaknesses in the home, in the marriage. Rather, they would see you as a power couple, in the sense that, let's say your wife is a big spender and you are more of a conservative type of person. What happens is, when it comes to your finances, how do you then deal with your finances? In your finances, if you realize that you're the one who is more financially sound, then you should be the one to, to plan the budget of the family. And the person who is the big spender in the family should be the one to spend. For example, you've planned the budget of the month. It's supposed to be, let's say, 200 euros in a month. You as the person who is financially sound, who understands budgeting, you've planned it. Now your wife is supposed to execute it, because she's better in spending, she's better in buying things. So you make the budget and she spends. The other way around, right? Instead of that being a center of fights, a center of battles, rather you're supposed to use your strengths and weaknesses to the advantage of each other, not against each other. But that's where most couples get it wrong, in the sense that instead of using their strengths to cover their partner's weaknesses, they rather use their partner's weaknesses as a means to belittle them, you know. So, as I said, we need to, as women, especially as women, we must learn to accept our partners for who they are. All the good qualities, all the ones that we consider to be unacceptable, we ought to accept them the way they are. That's the only way we can get them to actually change, because change is something that comes from within. If you put pressure on a man or on someone to change, what will happen is the person would rather start resenting you, and this person will start avoiding you, because they know that each time they meet with you, you're putting pressure on them, you're mounting pressure on them in one way or the other. That's when you realize that instead, your husband will close from work. For him to go back home directly, he won't go home. He will go and maybe go to his friends, or sit at the bar and drink, or just spend time outside and come back home at late hours. Why? Because whenever he comes home, it's a battlefield. Whenever he comes home, you are blaming him for one thing or the other. Whenever he comes home, you're mounting pressure on him for one thing or the other. So that was just an introduction of what we had last week, and we would dive into today's session. And as I earlier said, today's session is a man's greatest need. Hi Valerie, hi Philippines. Before we dive into it, let's have a short moment of prayers, ladies. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the opportunity to be transformed and to be renewed in our ways of thinking. We thank you for the opportunity to take away the worldly mindset of marriage and to put in your mind, to put in your idea, to put in, what you intended marriage to be, and how you expect us to flourish in a God-given union. We pray, Heavenly Father, that you would have your way and that you would help us make the great change within us. Thank you, Heavenly Father. We cover this session with the blood of Jesus. We come against every distraction. In Jesus' name, amen. Ladies, could you please kindly have your cameras on? I know mine is closed, but as I said last time, I still have the same issue with my camera. So today's session, we're going to be talking about a man's greatest need. And one misconception that especially women have, is that a man's greatest need is food or sex. Those are just parts, but that is not his greatest need. A man's greatest need is to be admired and praised for his abilities and his achievements. Men, I know there are men in this session. If you resonate with what I'm saying, please make sure to comment in the comment section if you agree with me. Because if in a relationship, right, no matter how much you feed a man, no matter how much you give sex to a man, you know. But if this fundamental need is not met, you would still see the man going out, going to a place where he feels valued, going to a place where he feels accepted. No matter how good your food may be, no matter how good in bed you may be, but if you cannot feel this fundamental need, you would realize that there would always be a lack, like a lag, you know. So admiration, you know, I don't know if you usually watch movies, especially movies where you see when a woman or a wife is appreciating her husband and how his head will swell. I don't know, ladies, if you've ever experienced or seen this anywhere, but admiration is the food of a man's soul. When you admire a man, when you admire his strengths, when you admire his achievement, when you admire his abilities, it's like you're feeding his soul. You know, you're making him feel valued. You're making him feel accepted. You're telling him that I accept you for who you are. I appreciate all you do for me. I appreciate all you do for the family. You know, but when we don't do this, we are lacking in a very major aspect of our relationship, and in a very big way in which we can make our relationship and marriage more blissful. Men yearn and crave for admiration, especially admiration coming from the woman they love. You see, when he does those little gestures towards you, you know, and you appreciate it, it makes him feel even more happy. It makes him feel like wanting to do more and more for you. And the other side of admiration, you know, is wounding a man's male sensitive pride. These two things go together because in most cases, it's either we are doing one or the other. It's either we are appreciating our man or we are wounding his male, you know, his male pride. And when we hurt a man's male sensitive pride, that wound, it's not a shallow wound. It goes so deeply. It goes so deeply that it causes a man to suffer and leads to, and in most cases can lead to separation and divorce. And before we dive into why men have sensitive pride, I'd like us to take a look at the book of Genesis, for example. When, after the fall of man, God said, "Hi, Panda Official, thank you so much. Appreciating the man's effort make him want to work." Exactly. Appreciating the man's effort makes him want to work harder. So after the fall of man, the Bible tells us that, what does the Bible tell us? It tells us that the woman shall suffer in labor, and her desire shall be for her man. What does that mean? And the man will rule over her. You see that this is a God-given pattern. Like outside of your home, outside of your relationship, you can be the lioness, you can be the odogu, you can be whatever you want to be, you know. But when it comes to the confinement of your relationship, when it comes to your marriage and everything, you as the woman, you're supposed to, you come, how they say, God had already made it for you to be, your man to be the head, to be the lead. And when we read the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 3, it tells us that for the man is the head over the woman, just like Christ is head over the church. Again, when we read Ephesians 5 verse 22 to 25, it tells us that women, submit to your husband, just as the church submits to Christ. And in turn, the man should love his wife just as Christ loved his church and gave his life for the church. Do we see? So it tells us that one of the greatest need of a woman is love. When a woman is loved in a relationship, when a woman is shown not only loved and shown love, shown appreciation, not even appreciation, shown love, shown affection in a relationship, it gives her the opportunity to flourish. If you take a look at a lady who is in a toxic relationship, it will show on her countenance. It will show, even she will not be able to put on weight, she won't be looking happy all the time. But when this same woman goes into a relationship where she's loved, what happens? She begins to glow. She starts glowing. Why? Because one of the fundamental needs of a woman is to be loved. But now, from these very scriptures, we learn that the fundamental need, or one of the God-given ability of a man, is the desire to lead. God made it so. When he said the man should be the head of the family, it means it is an order, that's supposed to be followed. And while women are born with a desire for strong and caring male, or leadership, I don't know if you know the story of Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe puts this as this, that when God created a woman, when you look in a family, the females or the girls are always so attached to their father. Why? Because when they are with their father, they feel secured. When with their father, when they are with their daddies, girls feel safe, they feel protected. And in reality, what happens when a woman gets married, if you look at the Bible says the man shall leave his father and mother. The Bible does not say a woman shall leave her father. It says the man shall leave his father. Why? It is because when marriage is involved, the man leaves his father, but the woman, there is a transfer of fatherhood. At that point, there's a transfer of fatherhood from her father to her husband. Her husband becomes her new daddy. Her husband becomes her new father. Because deep within every woman, there is that desire to be protected. The same kind of feeling that she feels with her husband, with her father, with her daddy when she's still, she's still young. It's the same thing that she desires to feel with her husband. That daddy, kind of affection. That daddy kind of love. So there is just a transfer of fatherhood from daddy to hubby. That's why you see, and there is a trend going on TikTok where you see a lady, she has a man and she has a daddy. She calls daddy and both of them turn, So men with their highly sensitive masculine pride and strong muscular bodies are programmed to lead over women. And as I said earlier, it's a God-given drive that leads men to want to lead and protect and provide for their family. So it is this pride that causes men to want to lead, that causes men to want to provide, that causes men to want to protect their families. It is just like this feeling is just like the strong motherly instinct a woman has towards her child. That's how strong a man's desire to lead, protect, and provide for his family is. We all know how deep and strong a mother's love can be for her child. Then imagine if this is the same desire that men have towards their families, men have towards their wife. Then imagine the impact of it all. So now we're talking about women wounding the male's sensitive pride. Let's talk about how a man feels when we as the women, or when you as a woman, wound his sensitive pride. When a man's pride is wounded, it cuts him deep like a knife. It cuts him so deep like a knife. The pain the intensity of the pain that a man feels when his pride is being wounded is as painful as though you used a knife to cut him. and this arouses anger and harshness, but in most cases, a resentment. Men cannot bear that, they cannot bear their pride to be ridiculed and belittled. And as we are going through this session, I want each and every one of us to think of all the times where we have belittled the men that were in our lives. I want us to think about all the times that we have ridiculed the men that were in our lives. And as we go through this, try to resonate this. Then you'll be able to see where you went wrong. Then you'll be able to see where, despite the fact that you were a nice person in the relationship, despite the fact that you were a caring person, but your partner still left you, because in one way or the other, you probably wounded his male pride. And this is a very big deal when it comes to men. When you wound or belittle or ridicule their male pride. And we women, we can deeply hurt our partners without even being aware, without even realizing. And the main tool that we usually use to belittle or ridicule our men is our mouth. This mouth that God has given us. Our mouth and the tone in which we utter words from our mouth. And many of us, this mouth is the main thing that is keeping us away from having a permanent or stable relationship, because we are unable to control. That's the reason why I started this session by talking about healing from trauma. Do you see, ladies, why it was so important for us to deal with the trauma, healing from trauma, and then talk about how to harness your emotion and communicate better before we get into this session, because they are all related. Once you're able to heal from your childhood trauma and you're able to understand how to harness your emotion, how to communicate and when to communicate, because normally when you as an individual, you're angry, when you feel the emotions rushing from everywhere, that's not when you're supposed to speak. Because when you try to resolve issues when you're angry, what happens is you would mostly spill out curses out of your mouth. And when you spill out curses, you spill out hurtful words, what are you doing? You're hurting your partner. Whether you are doing it deliberately or non-deliberately, you are hurting your partner. And what do you expect at the end of the day when you keep hurting your partner with your words and with your tone? It will build resentment. Your partner will begin to resent you. That's the reason. And what happens when your partner or your man begins to resent you, he will begin to build that invisible wall around himself to try to protect himself. Why? To protect himself from you. And that's the worst, I don't know if you say the worst ever kind of feeling, that your man will build an invisible wall to protect himself from you. And in most cases, that's when you realize how your man will start being silent. He would start giving you the silent and cold attitude just because he's trying to protect himself. Because he knows that each time he comes to you to talk to you, you would either belittle his decisions, or you would, let's say, anytime you have an issue, you would burst into an extreme anger that he's even unable to contend. You know? So, what happens is they will stop confiding in you and rarely keep long conversations with you. Because each time they try to confide in you, each time they try to keep long conversation with you, it will lead to one thing or the other. And that one thing or the other is never a beautiful thing. So you start closing up. Hi, I'm married already. I'm married. I'm 26, Patidus. You know? And you see, most of these things I'm talking about, if you don't learn these things now, you would learn it the hard way. You would learn it the hard way. And as I said, if you begin to think about all these things, like if you begin to ponder on all these things, you begin to realize how many times you've hurt the people, your exes, or the men that you've been with your words, with your manner of communication, with your way of handling issues, with your impulsivity. I used to be a very impulsive person, but thank God I had to learn this earlier on before I got married. I had to learn this earlier on before I got married, which I'm really grateful to God for. I'm still a work in progress, but it's so important, because until we are able to have these conversations, until we are able to deal with these things, we would always have escalations in our issues, in our relationships all the time. So he will stop sharing with you his innermost feelings, his innermost thoughts, even though he may be longing to, even though he may be longing to share with you the things that he desires, his dreams, his visions, but he knows that each time he comes to you, you will belittle him, whether you're doing it unknowingly, or knowingly. So now, let's talk about a few ways in which we hurt our partners. Remember, in today's video, we are talking about a man's greatest need. And we said one of the man's greatest need is not food, it's not sex, but admiration. Admiring his achievements, admiring his qualities. It's so important, because in most cases, we would always turn to look at the negative sides of our partners, focus on the negative side, and ignore all the good things that they do for us, all the sacrifices that they make for us, But we should be in a standpoint where we are admiring our partners. That is one of their greatest need. And I said the opposite of admiration toward our partner is wounding their male pride. We said the opposite is wounding their male pride. And we said, let's talk about some ways in which we can wound a man's male pride. The first is our words and the tone in which we talk. I cannot overemphasize this, because we women, we have sharp mouths. Honestly, we have sharp mouths. And so long as we as women, we do not learn how to contain our tongues, we would continue to make silly mistakes. We are the ones in a relationship who always turn to say things that we do not mean, especially when we are angry. Especially when, we are angry and the emotions are all bursting out. We would tend to say things that we do not mean. So we need to learn the art of controlling and taming our tongue, and the tone in which we communicate our disapprovals, the tone in which we communicate our disagreement. Another way of wounding a man's male pride is by making jest and mock his masculine quality, or compare him with other men. So for example, let's say your man has a weakness. When you start making jest of it and mocking at his weakness, oh my goodness, you're wounding him. When you start telling man you're not even good enough, there is a pain. The kind of pain that you are putting on him is as sharp, as I said earlier, as sharp as a knife. When you compare your man to other men in disfavor of him, you don't really know what you're doing. While you think that you're trying to get back at him, instead you're helping him to create that wall, that invisible barrier. Because the more you keep doing that, the more he will keep resenting you. And as I said, once a man starts resenting you in a relationship, no matter what you would do in a relationship, right, it will be so hard for him to come back. And the only way to restore a man after he has been so broken by you, by your words, by your way of being. It's true admiration. Because remember, it is the opposite of wounding. Do we get? Another way in which a woman can wound her man's male pride. We'll talk about other ways, but when you wound a man's male pride, it kills his affection for you for a time. It kills his affection for you for a time. And as I said, the more you continually wound your partner, the more you continually do things sometimes, and in many cases, we women, we do things intentionally. And the funny thing is, we are always the pity party. We are always the ones playing the pity party. I'll take an example. For example, a woman will intentionally insult a man because she's angry, she's emotional, right? And then when he reacts towards your insult, because you've really wounded him, despite the fact that you may not know at what extent in which you've hurt your partner, does not mean that he's not hurt. And because some men do not react when you hurt them, does not mean they are not hurt. Some are really hurt within their soul, like in their soul, but they keep it to themselves. And the more they keep keeping it to themselves, as I said earlier, they would build resentment. They will build those invisible walls. You know? I said, you will, after doing that, and he now reacts to the cause effect, you would now start paying the pity party as the woman. You start telling everyone how evil he is. But you had the responsibility in it. That's why I said earlier today that whenever there is an issue in a relationship, it's always a two-way thing. One partner is never fully responsible. The other partner always has a role or a way in which they contributed. And instead for you to try to throw the blames, equally try to sit back and ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? What mistake did I make? How did I contribute in the issue that we are having right now? Or how did I contribute to escalate the issue? But in most cases, we women, we would always want to be the defensive. We would always want to throw the blame, every blame on the partner. It's your fault. It's because you did this. Yes, he did that. What was your reaction? You equally had the reaction toward what he did. If your reaction was passive, the issue wouldn't have escalated. Do we see? In most cases, for you to really be able to build that, that healthy relationship, you would have to be sometimes passive. Because when it comes to men, you can't even count the number of times men have to be passive in a relationship. When it comes to that part, I give it to the men. I give it to the men. Because they are so strong when it comes to not reacting to certain things. Men know that art. They master that art. But we as women, we are on the other side. We are the impulsive. We are so impulsive. In most cases, we want to react. So some of the causes or some of the effects of wounding a man's masculine pride is for some men, it will get them into alcohol. Some men will start spending more time outside rather than spending time at home with their families. Because why? Each time he's around, you are hurting his feelings. Each time he's around, you are belittling him. Each time he's around, you are quarrelsome. You are nagging. How do you expect a man to have peace in such an environment? Remember, when you get into a relationship with someone, they are supposed to be your peace. And it's a two-way thing. A man is not just supposed to be a woman's peace, but a woman is expected even more to be a man's peace, his safe place. But when you become the hostile one, when you are hostile towards him all the time, sometimes, as I said, it can be even unintentional. What happens is you're no longer the safe place where he can confide. You are no longer the safe place where especially in the beginning of the relationship, whenever he closes from work, you'll be rushing home. If your man is not rushing home whenever he closes from work, know that there is something that you're not doing right. There is something you're not doing right. And you need to be able to identify that thing that you're not doing right. I talked about this last week. Identify that thing you're not doing right. Try to amend it. But then if you try to amend it and there's no changes, maybe it might be dead. But it does not mean, you keep trying anyways. Keep trying. So it would lead him to stay late out, spend most of his time with his friends, spend most time drinking at the bar. Why? Because you're not his safe place anymore. And in some cases, this one was a very funny discovery I made. It says that some men may even become impotent because you're always belittling him. So only long-term acceptance and admiration can restore that kind of relationship. If you have gotten to that point in your relationship where your man is always out, whenever he closes from work, he's not rushing. And most of us, some of these things are not even things that can be applicable for the now. This might be things that will be very valuable for us for the future. That's why we are having this session. How to counteract when issues like this begin to happen, how to identify the signals, and what to do eventually. So only long-term acceptance and admiration can restore. So ladies, as you're preparing for your future partner, begin to build that mindset. If you're not the type like me that does not know how to appreciate, that doesn't know how to, they say verbal admiration or affirmation, that doesn't know how to do that's not good at affirmation, words of affirmation. It's time for you to start learning. You have to get on your Zoom, start learning that art of affirmation, because men desire affirmation even more than women. Women desire love, they desire to be protected, desire to feel safe. But for men, words of affirmation, it will get to their soul. It will get to their soul. It will touch them. The more you accept a man and appreciate his achievements, appreciate his efforts, it will get to him, and it will give him the desire to do more and more and more for you. But when you don't do that, when all the time you belittle him, what happens? He will begin to lose confidence in his ability. He will begin to lose confidence in his ability, which is not the standpoint that you want to bring your man to. He must be confident in his relationship. When you're with a man, you need to bring a man to be in a place where he's confident, not only confident, but confident in such a way that he can flourish. Because if a man is confident, if a man is admired in his relationship, it will give him the desire to do more. He would have that peace of mind constantly. He would do well at his place of work. He would do well in his business because he knows he has someone that accepts him for who he is and what he does, all the effort he furnishes or he puts in. Guys, please like the live session so it can recommend this to more people and that it might be useful too. If you just join in, we are talking about a man's greatest need. So now let's talk about common mistakes wives make that induce their husband's sensitive pride. mistakes that wives make. Hey guys, I'm right back. So, what are the common mistakes that wives make that injures their man's sensitive pride? And I want us to take note of all these points because, in one way or the other, we have been responsible or guilty of these things. And I won't lie, I myself have been responsible of some of these points at some point. And even now, sometimes I still make the same mistakes. But does that mean I'm not working on myself? I am, because I value my relationship, I value my marriage. And for anyone out there, I want to let you know something. When you decide to get into a relationship with someone, you must be willing to put in your all. You must go with everything. You're not going and leaving some other things in reserve. And as you're going in with everything, know that you would constantly need to work on yourself, because we are all a work in progress. Because lot of people or lot of women have met very good men, but break those men. They were responsible for the breaking of those men. Likewise, lots of men have met very good women, but they were responsible of breaking those women. So when you make a decision to be in a marriage, that you've accepted this person, that this is my person for life, know that you must be willing to put in everything. If it demands you for you to shut your mouth, shut your mouth. If it demands you for you to hold that anger, that desire to, to talk bad or whatever it is, hold it. There is a price to pay when it comes to building a healthy relationship. In the beginning, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be hard to get out of all those toxic habits. It's going to be challenging, But the more you keep doing it, the more you keep practicing it, along the line, it becomes natural. With that said, it means that if you're still at the place where you're still struggling with one or two of these things, no worries. Start from today. Start making the improvement from today. And when you start making the improvement from today, if you're not good at affirmation, start working on your ability to affirm today, because you would need it in the future. And for our sisters who are already married, or already in a serious relationship that's leading to marriage or engaged, know that you would need it. It's a vital tool when it comes to winning your man's heart. So the first mistake is criticizing his weakness. How many times, just try to think, how many times have you been in a position where you criticized your man's weakness? Or you jokingly, criticized his weakness? How many times? Think about it. Think about your exes. Have you ever been into such position? If yes, that means you need to start working on that. The second thing is speaking angrily when he fails in a masculine area of responsibility. Guys, please, let's like the live session. Speaking angrily when he fails in a masculine area of responsibility. So what is it telling us here? That when you're in a relationship with your partner, and let's say he was supposed to repair the car and probably forgot to repair the car, how you respond to that will determine if he's gonna repair it or not. As I said the last time, that if you respond in anger and mountain of pressure, it's not gonna get him repair it. No matter how much you would complain, no matter how much you would nag, it will just become a nagging. It won't get him to move an inch, like an inch. He won't move an inch. But the way you respond, how calmly you approach the situation, how calmly you approach the matter, is what will determine his response as well. So if as a woman you haven't mastered that art of calmness, if as a woman you haven't mastered that ability to talk to your husband in a calm tone and in a respectful tone, then there is work to be done. You need to start practicing it now. You need to start working on that now. You know, when you come back and see that the car has still not been washed or has still not been repaired, that's the moment where you need to bring back the tools to control anger management tool. That's when you need to bring that and start working on that. Self-control over your emotions, self-control over your mouth, most especially over your tongue. Women, ladies, so important. The next one is disagreeing with him on masculine matters. Like, even if you want to disagree with your partner, there is a way to disagree without disagreeing. But if at any point in time he's talking about a masculine matter, let's say for example football, because in most cases men will always allow their women to win. In most cases men will always allow their women to win a discussion, for peace to reign. This is a very serious one. I've noticed this with my husband. He will not even want to argue with you. And in some cases, especially when you've grown in a very toxic environment, you tend to think that, I've seen memes online that, you cannot even fight with men these days. Small fight that I want to fight with him, he's already apologizing. I want fire. You see that is actually a healthy relationship. His ability to not fight with you because he wants peace to reign, but you're pushing things so that he should fight with you, but he wants peace, but you are bringing fire. You see how sometimes we women, we use our own hand to look for our own problems. You know, the next is pouring cold water on his ideas. So when your man brings up an idea, or he's bringing an idea for the betterment of your relationship, for the betterment of his life, the betterment of your, I don't know, whatever idea it is, and instead for you to encourage him in the idea, what you do is you pour cold water on it. And even if it's something you do not agree on, there is a way, as I said earlier, there is a way to disagree without disagreeing. There is a way to disagree without wounding a man's pride. So when you pour cold water on his dreams, you pour cold water on his visions, on his ideas, you're only getting the man to be in a place where he would resent you and he will close up. Because imagine if each time he brings up an idea, you're pouring cold water on it, what happens is he will begin to close up. He won't talk to you about his dreams anymore. He won't talk to you about his visions anymore. He would rather go and talk to his friends out there. He would rather go and talk to his parents, and sometimes even to your friends. You would see him sharing his visions, his feelings, his dreams to other people except you. Because each time he brings them to you, you pour cold water on it. You do not validate them. Thank you, Luciano, for the follow. Thank you. I really appreciate. Thank you so much, Luciano. The next one is giving him advice when he has not asked. Hey, we women, we have issues. So, when he has not asked for your advice, avoid doing jump enter. Because sometimes he may be really trying to figure out how to go about a situation. And you sometimes just bringing in your idea, and equally the manner in which you bring in your idea matters. It matters. It matters in the sense that if you use the wrong approach to bring in your idea, you would be belittling him. And remember, as I said, it's not only about the men here in this situation. That's why I said earlier that when you get into a relationship, a life-lasting relationship, it's about you two. It's about him. It's about her. Their well-being should be an issue of concern to you. So you doing things that belittles your partner, should be an issue of concern to you, you know. So it's a teamwork. As I said earlier, it's not husband against wife or wife against husband. It's a teamwork. It is us against the world. Do you see? But if all the time in your relationship is you against each other, how do you intend to stand against the world? Also, discussing his career as if you know better than he does. Let's say, for example, you guys are talking about his career or just football. I want to claim that you know Messi. You know Messi has scored five. You know, you're not trying. What are you trying to claim? I think calm down. Except if you're having just like a harmless conversation. You know, if you guys are having a harmless conversation, there's no issue. But you know, it should not be like matters that are serious. You know, you're trying to prove a point, always trying to prove a point. And the reason why I say so is because women are always the ones who are trying to prove a point. We women are always trying to prove a point in one way or the other. Another point is reminding him how you struggle on his income. So what happens when you try to remind a man how you struggle on his income? It's like telling him that he's not doing enough. You know, it's like telling your man that the work you're doing, the business you're doing is not good enough. And can you imagine how painful it can be for a man when you're belittling his efforts, that the efforts he's putting into the business, the efforts he's putting into his job? Can you imagine how painful it may be for him? You know, another point is telling others how much your parents have done for you since you got married. Imagine you're married to someone and you're telling your friends, your people that my parents have done so much for me ever since I got married. For real? Your husband is supposed to be your provider in marriage. So now, instead of, you know, instead of appreciating your husband, appreciating the effort he's making to provide for the family, to protect the family, what happens? You're showing admiration. You know, it's not like saying that you don't have to show admiration towards your parents, but don't do it in terms of the responsibility that your husband has towards you. Because the responsibility that your husband has towards you is his responsibility. So when you belittle those responsibility, it's like saying that the efforts that he's putting in is worth nothing. Another point, admiring a masculine quality in other men. Imagine you're in your relation. Can you say Gamar? Kiara, what do you mean? Please, I don't understand. So imagine you're in a relationship with your partner. You're not admiring his qualities. You're not showing him appreciation, but you're busy admiring other men. This man is so intelligent. You know that this my friend. He's so smart. That your friend. He's so what, like, seriously, what are you trying to gain with such a behavior? What are you trying to gain with the way you just spoke? Belittling your partner. Because that's exactly what you just did. You belittled your husband. You know? Oh, Gamar Joba. That's hard. It means hello in Georgia. Hello, Kiara. Hi. Ladies, this session is going to end in 14 minutes, but I'll send the link because we have a couple of things to discuss more before we dispatch. Another thing is suggesting he calls a repairman when he's trying to fix something. Let's say your husband let's say the sink is broken and he's really struggling to repair the sink. He's really trying hard to repair the sink, and then instead for you to say, oh babe, I trust your ability, you know, just appreciate him, appreciate the effort he's putting in, you know, to fix the repair because you know in your mind, for some men that sink can be there for 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, he will not even shake. But your husband has tried, he has made the effort to try and go and fix it. Appreciate that effort. Instead of saying, you know what, this thing serve you since 5 hours you've been trying to fix that thing. You've not been able to fix it. Is it not better for you to call a repairer? Let it be that kind of thing. Because that's a manly thing that a man is supposed to do. If he's struggling with that, let him be the one to initiate the idea that he needs to repair. He needs to call a repairer. Let it come from him. But when you initiate such things, what happens is you belittle him. You belittle him. You know, it's not about complimenting other men. Are you complimenting your man? That's a question. Are you complimenting your man in the first place? Because if you're the kind of person that you're complimenting your man all the time, there is no reason why he will feel insecure. Uh-oh, we lost the challenge. The next one. Not paying attention when he's trying to tell you something of which he's proud of. Uh-oh, we lost. So, let's say, you know, he's trying to tell you something he's so proud about. He did something at work so extraordinary. He got appreciation. See, let me tell you something, ladies. If a man does something and he receives appreciation from outside and comes back home and you as his wife do not show him appreciation, hey, whatever appreciation he has received outside will not really mean anything to him. Do you know that? Whatever appreciation he might have received out there will not mean anything to him as much as if you had shown appreciation or given the listening ear to what he's trying to tell you. No, they try to deform business. It's not when you should be able to understand that it's not all the time you'll be forming business. Or it's not all the time, especially when you're trying to have an important conversation, you're on your phone. You're not giving attention, you're not paying attention to what he's saying. Please, ladies, let's like the live session so it can recommend to other people. The next point is not praising him when he does something outstandingly well. Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Trice. So when your husband does something extremely well and you don't praise him, like, what are you even hoping on? Someone just tried to fix the sink for you. Someone just brought you water. Someone just, appreciate. And I'm saying this in the sense that, let's say, even if you marry someone who is not good with words of affirmation, the more you appreciate him, the more he would learn that art and start giving it back to you. That's why we say that the ability of a happy home rests or lies within the hands of a woman. We have that power to build and to destroy. Now, it's left for you to choose where you want to be. Do you want to be the home builder, or you want to be, the proverb? There's a chapter in Proverb that says that it is better to live on the rooftop than to live with a troublesome woman under the same roof. So you decide, will you be the wise Proverbs 31 woman and the Solomon woman, or would you be the nagging wife that your man will go and live on the rooftop? Decide. So learn, as I said, if you're here and you don't know the art of affirmation, go and start learning it. Go learn it. You would need it. And if you have a partner and you have not been appreciating him enough, start doing it from today. Start doing it from today and see how his head will swell. You see how his head will start swelling. You see how he'll be more protective. See how you'll be more intentional. Just do it for nothing, not because you're trying to gain any favor from him. Just cultivate it. Just cultivate that habit. Let it become a habit. As I said, there are certain things that will be hard for you to start doing in the beginning. But the more you keep doing it, consistency is what makes it, that's when What makes it easier for you to do? The next point is telling him he is losing his figure or hair. This one, you see this one, you see the same way a woman feels bad when you tell a woman that she's getting fat. It's the same way a man feels when you tell him he's losing his figure or his hair. It's like literally telling him that he's no longer attractive to you. You know? And there are ways to go about all of these things. We'll discuss about this in our upcoming session. This is just secret number 2. The first secret we talked about earlier was acceptance. Accepting your partner for who they are, accepting their flaws and weaknesses, focus more on their strengths, and overlook their weaknesses. What happens when you do that is you bring yourself in a position where you do not resent your partner. You know, because when you're in a relationship with someone and you begin to resent that person, or each time they do things to you, you keep it in your heart, resentment is built. And when you build resentment in a relationship, what happens over time, you will not be able to support each other. You won't be able to stand each other. So resentment is a very, very dangerous thing in a relationship. Never put yourself in a position where you resent your partner, or never let your partner to resent you, because that's how it starts. It always starts that way. So whenever you have issues with your partner, try to brush it up. And when you brush it up, take it away from your mind. Don't be the kind of partner that something will happen today. You will behave as if you've forgotten it. 5 months after, you would remind your partner of what he did to you 5 months ago on the 25th of February 2023. Don't be that kind of partner. Because when you keep things like that in your heart, as I said earlier, it will build resentment, which is something that even when you move in a relationship with your partner, you have to have this kind of conversation. You have to learn the art of not keeping things against each other, either for you or your partner. You should have this kind of conversation. Okay, this is one. It will be so lovely that in our relationship, we learn how to not keep resentment towards each other. Do we see? Another thing is holding yourself up as an example for him to follow. This one is very funny. Like, you know, we all know, we talked about earlier, and we remember we are talking about how women wound their man's masculine pride. So imagine you're holding yourself up as an example for your partner or for your husband to follow. Like, what are you trying to gain? Are you not? Because what happens is you're wounding his ego. We all know that when we talk about a man's pride, we are talking about a man's natural ego. We are not talking about the overly exaggerated pride. You know, there's a difference between exaggerated pride and that natural pride that a man has because he was designed to be that way. You know, it's when it's excess that is troublesome. But that is something which is naturally in all men. That's that ego, that's man pride. It's in all men. So when you begin to hold yourself as a standard for him to look up to, what happens? Because you know the danger of these things. The danger of it is that, for example, you now have children. Instead for your children to look up to their daddy, they are looking up to you. Does it make sense? The Bible says the man is supposed to be the leader. But now, instead for you to look at your man as the leader, you're trying to put yourself above your man. It doesn't make sense. Like, the next point is reminding him of your superior education. So, ladies, whether you've been to the highest school, you know, there is another thing regarding this. Hi, neighbor. Sorry, guys. There's another thing. You see this thing, especially among women, where you do no matter how far you've gone in school, whether you have a PhD, Never try to prove or remind your husband that I am more educated. Today's high issue, neighbor, the message of today is understanding a man's greatest need. And we are talking about various ways in which a woman can wound a man's ego or male pride. So, no matter whether you've gone through PhD and he has just a high school diploma, never remind him of how more educated you are. Because it's not even relevant. How is it relevant in your relationship? As I said earlier, in a relationship, you're supposed to stand together, not against each other. So when you start reminding, oh, I'm better than you, what does that mean? It means that you're standing against each other. And a house that is divided cannot stand. How do you want a house that is divided to stand? It cannot stand. So your PhD, whatever degree you have, keep it in the cupboard. When you go out there, be the boss lady. I said this earlier, that as a woman, out there, you can be a boss lady. You can be a superwoman. You can be the fierce. You can be the CEO. But when it comes to your home, there is an order to follow. A more superior order than your CEO position. An order directly from heaven. Directly from heaven. And sometimes these things, it gets into women's mind. It gets into women's mind. You know, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how far you've gone, oh, hey God, I can never overemphasize on this. I remember some time ago, I had this conversation with my husband, you know, like, especially, this is a very underrated topic. It's so underrated. It's so underrated. Women, we need to learn these things. We need to learn these things before we get into marriage. And if we've been into marriage without learning these things, we need to start knowing them now. We need to start knowing them now. Another point is excelling him in a male-dominant sport. Imagine you go to the gym with your husband is lifting 50 kgs, you want to go and lift 70 kgs. Auntie, do you want him to call you my guy? Seriously, your husband is lifting 50 kgs, you're lifting 70 kgs, then you're no longer his babe now, you're his guy. He should be giving you shoulder, you know. It all boils back to the fact that you're trying to challenge your spouse, which is not required. Challenging each other in a relationship will never lead you anywhere. It won't help you build. It will help you break. Do you see? So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to build or you're trying to break? Choose your standpoint, ladies. Another thing is, hey, you see, in a family where we have, let's say, there is a time I have been to that point in time in my relationship where my husband lost his job and I was the only one working as at that time, you know. So in that position, what are you supposed to do? It says telling others that you have to go out to work to make ends meet. Can you imagine? You know? And the funny thing is, when men go out to work, in most cases, they won't boast about it to anyone because they understand it's their responsibility to provide, you know. But whenever we are in a position where we are, and in most cases, it's a temporary situation. It's always a temporary situation that a man will find himself in a state where he's not working. Because I believe there is no man that will ever feel comfortable not working and, you know, just staying back home. It's only an irresponsible man that will feel comfortable not working. But a responsible man, if he loses his job for a while, he would be pushing hard. So in positions like that, like even if you have to go out and work, what's the essence of going to tell people that, I'm working so hard to make ends meet? It's not required. It's not required. You're belittling your man's efforts. Because he lost his job temporarily does not mean that he's going to stay in that position forever. And also in relationships where you, the woman, you earn more than the man. That's, these are sometimes, and you tend to realize that mostly in relationships like this, that you would find the most abuse. If you're not very careful as a woman, you're in a position where you earn more than your husband, or if you're in a position where your husband is temporarily not working, you would break your marriage, or you break your relationship. You will. If you let your ego and pride to take over you and control you in those moments, because you never know when where life takes you actually. You never know. And if you look at successful relationships where the woman is earning more than the husband, or successful relationships where the woman is working for a time and the man is not working for a time being because he lost his job or one thing or the other, the women are very, very humble. And I talked about humility being the price. I talked about humility being the price. They don't let the pride take over their minds or take over them. Right, ladies? And please, if you have a question, please make sure you raise your hand, and if you like to contribute, make sure you do so. So all of these things we've talked about. Hi Shami, nice to have you around. Let me give a recap of what we talked about. Just the few points, the common ways or common mistakes wives make that injures their husbands or their partner's sensitive pride. With pride, we talked about criticizing his weaknesses. When you spend time criticizing your man's weaknesses, what happens is you're touching his ego. You're wounding his ego. And the more you keep doing that, what happens is it will build resentment, whether you like it or not. If you do not refrain from criticizing your man's weaknesses, you have to, as I said earlier, accept him, focus on his strengths, and overlook his weaknesses. That's what a relationship is supposed to be about. And as I said earlier, that most of the times, God will bring two people that are very different. Your weaknesses may just be your partner's strength, and your partner's strength may just be your weaknesses. But now, what happens is most partners, when they find themselves in a situation like that, instead of complementing each other, they start fighting against each other. They start standing against each other. But in reality, they were made in that way, in such a way that, imagine, for example, you meet someone who has the same weaknesses as you. Who's going to help the other? Who's going to lift the other up? But God made it possible that you found someone that is strong where you are weak, and maybe you're strong where he is weak, for you to complement each other. And when you understand that art, that we are supposed to complement each other in a relationship, and you hold each other's hand to stand strong, nothing can be against you. There is nothing that you won't be able to overcome. There is no mountain you won't be able to climb. There is no challenge in life you won't be able to overcome. But when you use that as a point of conflict, what happens is you would break. You would break. The second point is speaking angrily when he fails in a masculine area of responsibility. And I said earlier, lots of women have these issues. That you would come back. Let's say, as I said earlier, the example I gave earlier, he was supposed to, let's say, repair the sink, and maybe he forgot. He came back, he was so tired and he forgot, or he was so busy with one thing or the other, he forgot. Now you come back, you meet that the same things that were there are still there. What happens is you start shouting, blah 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 blah. You will just be seen as a nagging partner. That's what you would be seen as, a nagging partner. And mounting pressure on your partner to repair things, mounting pressure on your partners to do things, will not get him to do the things. It won't get him to do the things. Hey, my husband has joined this live session. Mr. Ozayan, they go and walk. Baby, you're coming back home already? So it won't get him to do the things. So the best thing you can do for yourself, as I said, the approach in which you ask him to, or the approach in which you remind him, will determine if he's actually going to do the thing or not. So if you're hostile in your speech, if you're hostile in your speech, it will get him to be more resentful and more defensive as well. And sometimes, even if he ends up doing it, it will not be out of love. It will be from a position of being forced. Just because he's forced and he wants to have peace from your nagging, blah, 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 yappa, yappa, yappa. I know my husband can testify to this one. The next is disagreeing with him on masculine matters. Pouring cold water on his ideas. This is a very serious one, honestly. It's a very serious one. And as I said earlier, lots of times we make these mistakes unknowingly. But this is a call for us to be more sensitive, to be more aware. Because if you begin to think of all the times you poured cold water on your partner's ideas, I said earlier that we should be very mindful when we are in a relationship with someone that we love and cherish, that we want to keep for life. We should be mindful. It's not like saying that you shouldn't be yourself. Be yourself, but learn proper ethics and proper manners. If it makes sense, learn manners. Because a lot of us, so many people lack manners. So many people lack class. Let me say manners. Let me not even say class, because, be as if I'm talking about demurcy. I'm not talking about, well, anyways, you have to be demure and mindful and thoughtful and courtesy towards your partner. The next is giving him advice when he has not asked. And I said earlier that there is a way in which you can chip in your contribution to your man without belittling him. So if you realize that most of the points I'm talking about are points that either belittle or reduces your man. So if anything you're doing, make sure that you are avoiding these things. Avoid belittling your partner. Reminding him how you struggle on his income, as if what he's earning is not good enough. Always be appreciative, because he's working hard. You don't know what he's going through, the mental, and even if you two are working, appreciate each other. It's very important. Appreciate each other. Appreciate each other's hard work. Appreciate each other's effort. Telling others of how much your parents have done for you since you got married. You're married to this man. You're his responsibility. And instead of appreciating him, you're telling people how much your parents have done for you when you're married. Like, it makes it feel as if he's not good enough, as if he's not putting in enough effort to provide for you or to provide for the family. That's what it makes it look like. Admiring a masculine quality in other men. You do not admire your husband. You're never admiring your husband, how fine he is, how fine man he is, how hardworking he is. But you're busy admiring other men. Like, what are you trying to gain? Not paying attention when he is trying to tell you something of which he is proud of. Not praising him when he does something outstandingly well. Telling him he is losing his figure. Holding yourself up as an example over your man. Repeat after me. I will never do this thing again. If you have been doing it, stop doing it. Reminding him of your superior education. As I said, who the education go help for that marriage? That marriage is not about the education. If it was about qualification that people were looking for to get married, like so many people are unmarried, but it's not about the qualification. And as I said, that in most cases, you would see that lots of things that women do, if you realize men do not do half of these things. Men, it's easy to see in a relationship, a man earns more than the wife. He doesn't boast about it. A man is working and his wife is not working. He doesn't boast about it. But when a woman starts working and the man is not working, hey, the whole universe will hear about it. Sorry. If a woman is earning more and a man is not earning more, the whole universe will hear about it. If a woman has higher degree than her husband, the whole universe will hear about it. Why is it always like that? I need to get some water, guys. Sorry. As I earlier said, men are prone to be more patient than women are. I can attest to this with my life. When I take a look at my relationship with my husband, the amount of patience he has exuded, I'm not sure I've exuded half of that patience. Which tells us that, yes, I did. Which tells us that when men are really, God bless the men out there, especially my husband. Honestly, there are certain things that they have that art of doing, but we women, we struggle with half of it. But yet, in most cases, we are the one to overlook their weaknesses. This is to tell us that we should take ourselves away from that point or stance where we focus on our partner's weaknesses and focus more on their strengths, focus more on the good part, because they are human beings as you and I. Same as you have your strengths and your weaknesses, is the same way they have their strengths and weaknesses. So what happens in the world if we all start looking at our weaknesses? What will happen? Yes, Shami, do you have something to say? Please feel free.
No, Alison, it's okay. I don't have anything to say. I'm just listening.
Okay. So if we begin to all focus on our weaknesses, like it's not gonna lead us anywhere, But we should look at our own strengths, appreciate each other for what we are doing. And even when we have certain remarks to make towards our partner, the manner in which we approach the matter or the manner in which we approach the situation matters. Your tone, your language, it matters. And I said earlier that we women, we must exude a lot of femininity or feminine energy, especially when we want to approach a situation or matter. Remember, I said when we were younger, especially little girls, we used to have this energy, the tone in which we would ask for something from our daddy. When you look at the way a little girl is asking for something from her daddy, you see that innocence, you see that confidence, you see that yes, babe, I am live on TikTok. You see that, you see that full dependency that she has on her daddy. It is the same way when you are approaching a matter towards your partner. That's the same vibe you're supposed to give him. That's the same vibe. Because if you try showing a man, even no matter how much independent you are, when you prove to a man, when you do everything to prove to a man that you are an independent woman, guess what? He's going to take you the same way you give yourself to him. And once you give yourself to him that way, and he begins to neglect certain of his responsibility, then you shouldn't complain, because that's how you sold yourself to him. You know? So it should be the opposite. Show your man that you depend on him. Show your man that you rely on him. It gives him that zeal to do more. Like, oh, I have a wife, I have a girl, she depends so much on me. I'm so and you know, one thing is, men are so happy whenever they provide for their partners, whenever they provide for their family. When a man is able to meet the needs of his family, it brings him so much joy, especially when he does that and he is appreciated. It gives him so much joy. Have you ever asked yourself that why do men work so hard? Why do men put so much energy to achieve big things and great things? It's not about the money. It's not about the money they get from it. It's about that joy that they derive when they provide for their family and they are being appreciated for that. So the more you appreciate your man, the more he would want to do more. The more he can bring down the moons and the stars, and for you. In fact, maybe he can take the universe and bring it for you. Some of us will not have where to live anymore, or some of you, anyways. You will not have where to live anymore, because those of them, they would carry everything, the stars, the universe, the planet, and give it to us. I'm joking, guys. So all these things belittle and saps his self-confidence and makes him feel less of a man. When you hurt a man's ego, when you hurt a man's pride, it makes him feel less of a man. It belittles him. It saps his self-confidence. The hurt causes him to feel angry and resentful. He then shows his bad side. That's when the bad side of him will start showing up. And he can't feel loving and tender towards you anymore. No matter how much he knows he should. No matter how much he may want to. But because of that resentment that he has built towards you, because of the wall that he has built towards you, he's unable to show you that love and affection. He's unable to show you that tenderness. So now let's talk about a few points before we end today's session. The power of admiration. And as I said, that the reason why men do try to excel in business and in career, the motivation behind their drive, why they keep striving for bigger and greater things, it's because of the joy they feel whenever they provide for their family and they are being appreciated. If you want your husband to flourish in whatever he's doing, just be appreciating his efforts. Admire his efforts. Admire his qualities. Be thankful that you have a partner like that. Just do it. And it will give him the desire to do more. But if you do not appreciate any slightest effort he puts in, what happens? You won't give him the zeal to do anything. You won't give him the zeal. Let me tell you something. There are some men that do certain work, certain jobs out there, that like crazy kind of jobs. But they keep pushing every day because they know that if they do not put in the effort, they will not be able to provide for their family. Hence, that becomes a motivation instantly. It instantly becomes a motivation. Do we see, ladies? So a man's need to feel loved. A man needs to feel loved, but not as much as he needs to feel admired. The reverse is true for women. A woman needs to feel admired, but not as much as she needs to feel loved. And we sometimes make this mistake to think that men's need are similar to ours, but that's not the case. That's not always the case. Men's needs are different from ours. what men will admire in a woman will not be the same thing that other women, let's say for example, if you as a woman, the things you would admire in another woman is her flawless face, beautiful hair, long hair, shapy body, class and everything. But for a man, the outward appearance is just a plus for a man. In reality, the man is looking at her ability to be sympathetic, the childlikeness that she exhibits, the tenderness that she exhibits, the respect that she's able to give him. Those are some of the things, most of the things men look at. In fact, physical beauty is mainly like attraction. That's why a man can be physically attracted to a woman and not love the woman. Physical attraction only brings lust, but not always love. So we need to learn these things, especially in a society where we women, we feel that throwing out our bodies or giving out our bodies is a means to get a man. The earlier we start learning that it won't work and it doesn't work, the better for us. And if you still struggle with this mindset, this is the time for you to carry that mindset. It's more about your personality. How empathetic are you? How childlike are you? How tender are you? Hi. Hi, Prince. Sorry, I was thinking. How childlike are you? How tender are you? Your speech, your manner of talking to your partner. Does he feel valued in that? Those are the things that will see a man will leave a very beautiful woman for another woman that you consider to be less beautiful, because that one is your own. You would consider her to be less beautiful. But in reality, there is something about her that he sees in her that you are lacking. And that's the bitter truth. Maybe she's more tender than you are. In as much as you are shapy, you have everything. Maybe she's more sympathetic than you are. Maybe she's more appreciative than you are. Those are qualities, do we see? That many cases, it's not about the physical appearance, it's about the qualities that the person has. And because the standard of love for men is not the same standard of love for women. As I said earlier, remember, the Bible says the man, I always say, you see that everything comes back to the Bible. The man shall love his wife. The woman shall submit to her husband. Submission is symbolic to respect, is symbolic to appreciation, is symbolic to admiration. Every beautiful thing that you can consider. But the Bible says a man, what happens? A man should love. What does that mean? It makes more sense. Doesn't it make more sense that the Bible tells us that a man should love his wife more than his wife, more than his the way Christ loved the church? Sorry, guys. It makes more sense why a woman desires to be loved and protected. The Bible has designed it all already. Men, love your wife. And when a woman is loved, she's able to flourish. The reverse is something else. When a man is appreciated, when a man is respected, when you're submitted to your man, it gives him the opportunity to flourish. So you see, if each partner is doing their responsibility, taking their responsibility in a relationship, there is no reason why a relationship should not work. It should. Men, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Women, submit to your husband as the church submits to Christ. Do we see? The balance is there. That's why I love the Bible. This is why I love the Bible. And it's so funny how some people, people, especially, I don't want to say people in the world, would always try to blame God. People will always try to blame God for every evil that is happening. But in reality, the evil that is happening in the world is because more people have not put up the mindset of Christ. The Bible says, as Christ was, so should you be. And if the Bible is telling you as a woman you should submit to your husband, now as a woman you refuse to obey Christ, and now your marriage is broken and you start accusing God. God, why? Do you see that in many cases we accuse God for certain things? Meanwhile, he has given us the blueprint. He has given us the lines, the margins that we are supposed to walk within. We fail to walk within those margins. Then when the repercussions happen, we tend to blame God. It is the same thing. People will be blaming God. If God exists, why are there wars in the world? If God exists, why is there famine? If God exists, why are people snatching other people's husband? If God exists, it's because people have not put on the mindset of Christ. Because you realize that the more you begin to walk with God and the more you begin to put on the mind of Christ, you become Christ-like. Your mind is being transformed. The things you used to do in the world, Christ begins to cut off those things bit by bit, and you become more and more like Christ, and you stop doing the things you used to do. Imagine if everyone stops doing the things they used to do and have the mind of Christ. What happens? The world will be a better place. Definitely. The world would be a better place. But if that's not the case, what happens? There will continue to be more. Hey, baby. Sorry, guys. If you see that, if more people are putting on the mindset that they are supposed to put on, then the world will be a better place. But don't expect the world to be a better place if everyone is resisting Christ and everyone wants to do what is best for them. Imagine, everybody has what they consider to be best. Everyone has what they consider to be best for them. What is morally good for me may not be morally good for you. And what is morally good for you may not be morally good for me. Then now imagine if there is no standard. Because even when it comes to the society, we don't know what is good anymore and what is evil. Because right now, there are certain things that are already legalized, certain things that are not biblically sound, but they are being legalized. Then what happens later? Are we going to still blame God for the repercussions? We can't blame God for the repercussions. The more people keep resisting the mindset that Christ had, the more the world will be in a mess. So we see that all these things come back again to Christ. It comes back to the biblical standards. So when you praise and admire his qualities and achievements, you make him feel manly. It touches his heart. It's doing him totally. When you praise your body, it makes him feel happy. You see the way you feel happy when your man spoils you, when he's coming back. He knows your love language. He knows you like flowers. He knows you like chocolate, or he knows you like shoes. And all the time he's buying you those things. He's bringing you those things. The same way you feel happy is the very same way your man will feel. Yes, baby. Okay. I don't want to eat it. That's during a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, what was I saying? Baby, what was I saying? So I was saying that
I heard they make you feel they will take juice.
Thank you,
Take
baby.
calm down.
Thank you,
Now
baby.
blood is not be water.
Thank you. So the more you see, the way you feel when he spoils you is the very same way he feels when you appreciate him, when you admire him. So I have these few points. A woman that knows how to admire a man's masculinity, or masculinity, whatever, wins his heart and becomes like an angel to him. And I was saying earlier that, let's say in a marriage, right, you're always hostile towards your partner, and then you're never appreciative, always nagging, always complaining about one thing or the other. I'm telling you, English 200. The English is not Englishing. you know, you're always nagging, you're always complaining, for one thing or the other. Your presence is no longer his safe place. Then I would say you're literally pushing him into the hands of a slay queen. Because when he goes to the slay queen will appreciate him. When you remove small 50K and give her, she would call him all the sweet names on this earth. Do you see that sometimes we are the ones pushing our partners out there? Unknowingly, sometimes we do it unknowingly. But this is a call to awareness. It's a call to awareness for each one of us. It's a call to awareness. Appreciate him. As I said, when you're in a relationship, you're into giving your all. When you said I do before the judge and you accepted the ring, you're putting it all, everything you need to put in. Because if you don't put it all, you'll be sorry. You'll be sorry for yourself. And that's not where we are trying to go. We are trying to be in a position where we are building a healthy marriage, healthy relationship that will last a lifetime. And honestly, yes, exactly, you need to talk things through. And also, I said that for us, especially for us women, we sometimes lack the approach or the manner of approach when it comes to talking things through. When it comes to that one, my husband is the odogu. I give it to him. He's the odogu, and there is so much that I'm learning from him. When it comes to approaching situation, when it comes to approaching matter, there's a way he would approach a matter. You yourself, you'll be ashamed that, So we need to learn the art of approach, especially women. We always want to approach things from a defensive point of view. But that's not where we are supposed to be. We are supposed to communicate even our wants and desires, our disapprovals, our whatever it is, disagreements. There is an art in which you can approach in a more friendly way. As I said, in a relationship, you're not fighting against your partner. It's not a battle. It's not a war. So if you approach things from a battle point of view, who are you fighting against? It's not it is you two together against the world. So, I said earlier, a woman that knows how to admire a man's masculinity wins his heart and becomes like an angel to him. Admiration is a wonderful thing to give. Another thing. Women, if you're here, if there are ladies here listening to me, this admiration thing, the earlier you learn it, the better for you. Why? Because it will not only be for your husband, but even for your future sons. And in fact, all your children. And that's something I admire so much with the white people. Their ability to appreciate. Their ability to affirm. They are so good at it. And that's something that we blacks, we need to learn. It's an art that we Africans, we need to learn. And the reason why I say we Africans, we need to learn is because most of us, we do not grow up in that manner. So it's something we need to learn from scratch. You see the way Nara Smith makes things from scratch. This is something we need to learn from scratch. If you know you're not there yet, start learning it from scratch. Let today be your day one. As I said, the reason why most of us do not do these things, we do not know how to affirm, is because we were not affirmed as children. In most cases, as children, when we do something wrong, our parents will only badge at us, shout at us, even, hit us or things like that, because that is the way they were taught to do things. They were taught to do things that way. So they were just transferring it. Like, even when we do something good, They will not appreciate us. You know, they will just in one way maybe just give you food and then you forget about it. You know, so we need to learn that art so that we will grow mentally stable children for the future, especially in this world that where we are heading to right now. If you know where we are heading to a very difficult position when it comes to raising children in this generation. In this generation, if you're not able to communicate with your children in the right manner, you risk losing them. I won't lie to you. You risk losing them. You see, saying sorry. In fact, if you don't know how to say sorry, go and stand in front of the mirror and start practicing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm serious. Go and take yourself, put yourself in front of a mirror and start practicing to say sorry. Because it's needed. Say sorry when you have to. Whether you're a man or you're a woman, say sorry when you have to. As I say, because I can't overemphasize certain mistakes, like silly mistakes, silly things that we do in relationships. I cannot overemphasize. Babe, leave me alone. I can't overemphasize. So learn that art. Because as I said earlier, that affirmation part, in this system where you have to literally remind your children that they are a boy, that they are a boy or they are a girl. If you don't know how to use words, go and start learning. Oh, this is an assignment I'm giving each and every one of you today. Go and start learning. You would need it. Those future children, because you see, when God gives you children, they are not even for you. You are just a vessel that God is giving, that God is using to bring up these children. And if you fail in your responsibility as a parent, it's like you failed God. It's like you failed God. So if there are certain habits that you need to develop now, go and start developing those habits. Because it's not when you start having children that you try to adjust.
I'm sorry.
This one.
To stop you. Yeah, which one? What's this?
That's stuck.
Ah.
If you want to wait when you start having children or when you'll be married, and I always say this, when you're in a relationship with someone and you start saying he's gonna change when we get married or she's gonna change, but you are not seeing any significant effort that they are putting in to change. Babe, can you please go to YouTube instead?
I will go to YouTube. Meet at Amao.
That's Paul.
For Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, all. Yeah.
Yeah, Kapisa.
So if you're waiting to say he's gonna change when
Paul.
Yeah.
Yo, okay. Keep us.
If you're waiting to say they're gonna change when exactly, had I known. Always when you see red flags in your partner early,
Babe,
address them. You.
Okay.
You know, when you see red flags in your partners early, address the matter. If you do not address the matter when it's still, they say in French, on the on bas le fer quand c'est encore chaud. It means that you strike. I don't know how to translate this one, but I'll try. You strike the iron when it's still hot. You see the possibility to mold the glass. You can only mold the glass when it's still hot. So when you're still in that early stage of your relationship, that's when you have to tackle certain issues. If you want to wait when you're married, then hey, you'll cry. Pool of tears for you. Pool of tears for you. So if you have the opportunity that you're still in the early stage of your relationship, that you can tackle certain issues so that you are on the same lane, do that. This is the best time. And it's only in that position that you'll be able to see every significant effort that your partner is making to improve. You see? And when your partner makes, no matter how small the effort is, please appreciate. Because you don't know how hard it is for a person that has been having a habit of 29 years, 25 years, 24 years to start changing suddenly. It's so hard. Imagine if his mother or her mother did not change him when he was young. How much more do you think you can change him suddenly when he's grown or when she's grown? Do you see? It's really complex. So when you learn the art of exactly appreciation melts the heart. Thank you, AI, for that. You just confirmed what I was saying earlier. So I said earlier that when you learn the art of appreciation and admiration and affirmation, it helps your children grow into confident adults, especially during teenage age. And then never, and this is something that our African parents gave us, shege, never tease your children. Let other people from outside tease them. But we, as parents, we are learning to be better. We are learning to do more, Never tease your children. Appreciate them for the things they do. The small efforts they put in, appreciate them, but do not tease them. It will play down on their self-confidence. That's why you see many adults are grown today, but they struggle with self-confidence. They are really struggling with self-confidence because while growing up, they did not have someone to appreciate them, to affirm them. So yeah, that's all for today, guys. If you are new to this channel, please do hit the follow button. Follow, like, comment, and share. And by the way, please make sure to check my previous post, give a like. And also, I'm making content about moving to Finland, so I would really appreciate if you can you see right here, just hit on my profile twice, go to my TikTok account, follow me on TikTok. Then there is a bio on my TikTok account. Click on the link. It's going to lead you to my YouTube account. Follow me, please, guys. Yes, so I am inspired by God. I am inspired by God. AI, that's what I can say. So thank you so much. By the way, my husband is my greatest cheerleader. I don't know which word to use, but well, So thank you all so much for joining today's session. Our next session is gonna be probably next week. This is just part. This is a series that we started. The first part of this discussion started with healing from emotional trauma, the need to heal from emotional trauma, and how to control your emotional outburst. That was the first part of our discussion. So the first part we are done with. Then once we are done with the first part, because that healing is required, and equally the ability to handle your emotion is very important when you find yourself in a relationship with someone that you want to be with for the rest of your life. Then you must learn the art of handling your emotions. If you do not know how to handle your emotions and how to communicate your wants and desires in a proper way, it will only lead to conflict in your relationship. So that was the first part. The second part, we talked about the desire or the ability to accept your partner, accept a man the way he is, with his strengths and his weaknesses. Accept him and love him for the way he is, and also overlooking his weaknesses but focusing on his strength. That was the first part. So in today's session, we are talking about the major need of a man, which is admiration. So you see, it's a series that we are going step by step, and every part of this series is necessary for the puzzle to be complete. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining today's session. I need to go meet my husband. Bye, guys. And by the way, I'm married. Bye, guys. Bye, guys. Thank you all so much for joining today's session. See you all. By the way, if you're here and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Please kindly subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Anyways, hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Watch my videos about moving to Finland and enjoy all the beautiful contents that I have provided for you. More contents loading next week. See you all. Let's keep keeping on. Bye bye.